Okay, let's be real. The IELTS speaking test can be super stressful, right? But what if you could walk in there feeling totally confident, like you've got this? Well, it turns out it's not really about having a perfect accent or using a bunch of fancy words. The real difference between getting a good score and an amazing one, it's all about your strategy.
So what is the secret sauce here? I mean, what really separates someone who gets a band 9 from someone who's stuck at a band 6? That's exactly the question we're going to dig into today, piece by piece.
You know, it really just boils down to two totally different mindsets. The first one, it's all about fear and memorizing answers. The second, and this is where we want to be, is all about confidence and just having a natural conversation. Our whole goal here is to help you make that jump from the first one to the second. So let's kick things off with part one. All right, part one, the first impression. Now, a lot of people think of this as just a warm-up, but honestly, it's so much more than that. This is your first and best shot to make a great impression on the examiner. But even more important, it's your chance to just relax, to get comfortable. Seriously, if you nail this part, the rest of the test is going to feel so much smoother.
So let's talk about the single biggest mistake people make, especially right at the beginning. It's using memorized answers. And I'm telling you, examiners are trained to spot this stuff from a mile away. It just creates the worst possible first impression. You gotta remember, this is a test of how well you can communicate, not how well you can memorize a script.
So, why is memorizing such a disaster? Well, for starters, you sound like a robot. Seriously, think back to when you were a little kid in school, reading aloud from a book, all stiff and unnatural. That's exactly what it sounds like. Plus, these memorized answers often don't even fit the question, they go way off topic. And what happens then? The examiner has to interrupt you, that throws you off, you get stressed, you sound even more like a robot, and yeah, your score takes a nosedive.
Right, and here's the bottom line. When you memorize, you lose all of that natural flow. You're not communicating, you're just reciting. It's like you're reading a teleprompter in your head. And that's pretty much the fastest way to signal to the examiner that you can't actually use the language on the fly.
Okay, so what's the fix? How do you avoid this trap? It's actually way simpler than you'd think. The people who get a band 9, they just treat part 1 like a normal everyday conversation. Here's the formula. First, you actually listen to the question. Second, you answer it directly. Third, you add just a little bit more detail, maybe a quick explanation or an example. And fourth, you stop. That's it. Seriously, just picture you're chatting with a friend at a coffee shop.
All right, let's tackle part two, the 2-minute challenge. Now, for most people, this is the part they dread the most. But what if I told you the 2-minute talk itself isn't the real problem? The real problem is the strategy that pretty much everyone is taught to use.
So, just a quick refresher for anyone who needs it. In part 2, they hand you a cue card. It's got a main topic and a few bullet points under it. Your job is to talk about that topic for 1 to 2 minutes. Yeah, I know, it sounds intimidating, but trust me, it doesn't have to be.
Okay, so here's the trap that almost everybody falls into. They look at those bullet points on the card and they treat them like a super strict checklist. You know, I have to talk about point 1, then point 2, then point 3. But the band 9 students, they do something totally different. They see the main topic as the real goal, and those bullet points, they're just optional ideas.
So what happens when you follow that checklist approach? Well, let's say one of the points is something you have nothing to say about, like describe how you felt when you learned to make a Bloody Mary, and you've never made one. You say, maybe one sentence, and then silence. Panic sets in. All of a sudden, you've run out of things to say after just 30 seconds, your fluency just dies, and you leave feeling like you totally bombed it. It's a recipe for disaster.
But here's the secret that completely changes the game for part 2. Ready? Those bullet points, they are suggestions, not commands. Let me say that again. They're just suggestions. You do not have to talk about every single one, and you absolutely do not have to talk about them in order. This is probably the biggest myth about the speaking test, and it holds so many people back.
So what do the top scorers do instead? Simple. They stick to the main topic, of course, but then they talk about whatever they feel comfortable with. They might tell a personal story connected to the topic, or give a really vivid description of something. They might talk about how it makes them feel, or their hopes for the future related to it. The key is, they take control and steer the conversation toward things they know they can talk about well.
All right, on to part 3. And let's just be honest, this is without a doubt the toughest part of the entire test. This is where the questions get way more abstract, way more challenging. They're literally designed to push you and see the absolute limits of your speaking skills. And this is where a lot of students just crumble. They do one of two things. Either they completely freeze up and just say, I don't know, or they give these super short one-sentence answers. And what's interesting is that a lot of the time it's not even about their English level, it's just pure exhaustion. I mean, you've been in a stressful test for like 15 minutes, and your brain just kind of gives up.
But listen up, because I'm about to let you in on a massive secret that most test takers never ever realize. If the examiner asks you a really hard question in Part 3, that is an incredibly good sign. It means they think you're a high-level speaker. They think you might be a band 7, 8, or even a 9, and they are pushing you to prove it. So the next time you get a super tough question, don't panic. Seriously, you should smile inside. It's actually a compliment.
So how do you actually answer these tough questions? Well, the top scorers almost always use a simple 4-step structure. Step 1, answer the question directly. Step 2, explain why you think that. Step 3, give an example, and it can be real or even just made up. And Step 4, develop your idea just a little bit more. This structure isn't just a random trick. It's like a cheat code for the marking criteria. It lets you show off your fluency, your coherence, your vocabulary, basically everything they're looking for.
But what if you hear a question and you genuinely have no clue what to say? Okay, here's the #1 rule. Always try to answer. Always. You can even buy yourself some time by saying something like, wow, that's a really interesting question. I've never really thought about that before, but I guess. You have to remember, this is not a knowledge test. It's an English test. Saying nothing gets you a big, fat 0 for that question. But trying to answer? That shows the examiner you can handle the language, even when you're caught off guard.
Okay, so we've walked through all 3 parts of the test. We've seen what the top students do in Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. Now it's time to tie it all together. What's the one single idea that connects all of these different strategies? Here it is, the ultimate secret, the big idea behind everything. For the people who get a band 9, it's not a test, it's a conversation. That's it. They're not trying to perform for the examiner or game the system. They are just having a conversation, naturally and gently guiding it towards things they actually enjoy talking about. So really the key to unlocking your best score is all about that mindset shift. Stop thinking of it as this terrifying performance. Start thinking of it as a simple chat with someone who's genuinely interested in what you have to say. Look, you already have the English skills. The goal now is just to relax enough to let them shine. So the only real question left is, are you ready to go in there and show that examiner the score you truly deserve?